Dachau was probably one of the first concentration camps that the Germans built after Hitler came to power in 1933. Dachau, Buchenwald, Sachsenhausen was one of the first camps. Uh, the first thing when we came to the camp, we learned to find out who were the internal administration, who was it run by. All prisoners were marked with above the serial number on the uniforms, there was a triangle of a certain color. The color of the triangle indicated why you were in the camp. The red triangle indicated you were a political prisoner. A green triangle indicated that you were a criminal. A black triangle indicated that you were a gypsy. A purple that you were that you didn't want to serve in the war, that you were, and pink one that you were a homosexual. The Jews, some had red triangles, in some camps we had a Star of David that were made from a red and a yellow triangle. In the Camp Dachau, the camp was run by political prisoners. They were one of the first German political prisoners who were in concentration camp. The political prisoners that were there, some of them were, they were veterans, and some of them, were professional humanitarians, professors, writers, okay, and they tried to advise us and to tell us and to help us, okay. Otherwise, everybody was for himself. When we came in to the camp, we traveled for 3 days and 3 nights to Dachau without food or water. We were starved, and they lined us up in a square, and they brought out kettles of potatoes and jackets and cabbage. And we could smell it, and, we couldn't wait to. While we were lining up, the air siren sounded. There was an air alarm, and we had to run into special, prepared ditches, bunkers, and the planes were passing over, and we were hoping that they're going to bomb us, because we have never experienced the Allied planes to bomb the camp so far, okay? And at this time also, they passed by and they bombed a industrial site about 3 kilometers away from the camp. And while we were staying in the ditches, some of the people couldn't control their hunger. They ran out from the ditches toward the kettles with the food. And the SS from the towers machine gunned the people. So there were bodies laying all over the square. So after the air raid, they called us out, and they lined us up and to distribute the food. Is that the food was cold and tasted bitter. We looked at the friends' cameras laying dead, they couldn't control their hunger. We were in Dachau from October till November. From Dachau, they took us to another camp, was Augsburg. While we were in Poland, the two camps that we were in Poland were all Jewish camps, was run by Jewish interior police, etc. When we came to Germany, those camps were not run. The Jews were just a small fraction of the camp. The camps were run by people of other nationalities. The first gypsies that we encountered were in Augsburg. As a matter of fact, the gypsies in Augsburg held the controlling positions, because in Augsburg they had a detail for diffusing bombs that did not explode. At that time Augsburg was bombed frequently, so those details were made up from gypsies. They used to, in the morning, there were 5 or 6 trucks. They load up the gypsies and go to the sites where the bombs didn't explode. And in the evening, when the truck came back, usually half of them were the Gypsies were not that, you know, professional. They used to try to defuse the bombs, and the bombs would explode and kill. So, but they held positions in the kitchen. They held positions in job distributions because of the fact that they performed this particular function. You tried to learn what was uh, instrumental in providing safety for you. Okay, who was in charge? Who do you look out for? You know, when was it good to try to go and clean yourself up and shave? Who was in charge at that time? Okay, if there was a couple who was not a friendly person, you try to avoid it. Okay, so these were little things that 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 became very important in the camp. If you lined yourself up for food, you had to be very careful not not to be able to control your hunger and get in the line the second time, because the beating, when they discovered that you were, they could tell you were second time in the line. They checked your tin plate, if it was clean or was the traces of food. If you tried to get in line the second time, the beating that you got, you know, contributed to you know, your demise. You couldn't handle the more than one or two of those beatings. So it was more important, it was more prudent not to get in line the second time, and suffer from hunger than expose yourself to the beatings and so on.
And were you still with your father and two uncles?
I was with we survived the war all together. We were liberated all together. When we were in the first camp in Mielec, okay, they categorized all the people that were there into three categories. I only found one instance where it was done in another camp. They they hung. We wore as a little uh, sign. There was either um, R, W, or Z. Z indicated that you were working for civilian, part of the plant. W was for Wehrmacht, that you worked for the army. And R was Rüstungsindustrie, was the most coveted. We didn't know it. Later on, we realized it was more coveted because it indicated that you were a skilled worker. And later on, we found out they kept records of it. Okay, after the war, we found out that those who were in the who were classified as R were afforded less severe conditions because they needed them. Later, I went the first camp I was in for 2 years in one camp. For the next year, I went to 10 different camps. And we wondered why they ship us from one camp. We found out each and every camp that we went afterwards was somehow affiliated with the aircraft industry. And our records indicated that we were, skilled labor. So that on one occasion, in the first camp in Flossenburg, when we were separated into two groups, one that went to Mauthausen, my father's younger brother was put in that group. And my father stepped out. I don't know where he got the courage. And he addressed the German major and addressed him in German. And he said that I'm an ex-veteran of Austro-Hungarian army, and my brother is being separated. I would please like to have my brother with me. And we expected the German major to go into his holster and take the gun and shoot my father, because that was and he turned away and he said, let the Jew have his brother, because he probably figured that we all were, you know, you know, the same fate was awaiting all of us. So that was the only instance that we were being separated. Afterwards, we were always the transport was moving from one airplane factory or airplane facility.